Stryker here, and today, sorry, hello everyone, Stryker here, and today we're watching a video about World of Warcraft's most hostile zone. For those of you who may not know, I held a charity stream, and one of the milestones was to stream classic WoW. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I think I'm going to watch a video on different classes. I kind of have an idea of which class I want to go with. I am doing classic, I think I said that. But I'm not really sure if I want to do paladin or warrior. But I might watch a video on all classes to see if maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe something else intrigues me. Uh, so look for that video. But for today, we've got this one, Most Hostile Zone by the Karzan sounds right. Karzan Library. I've watched them and Platinum WoW. I would listen to the lore stuff on like car rides home. Like I knew nothing about World of Warcraft, but it was really interesting lore. Might rewatch some of those because it's been a while since I've done that. But without further ado, let's get started.
Everything for the World of Warcraft. For the first time, we left the world of Azeroth behind, stepped through the dark portal, and found ourselves on the Hellfire Peninsula. To many of us, it was just the starting zone of WoW's first expansion, a place to level up and find new gear. But in the Warcraft lore, the Hellfire Peninsula is so much more than that. In this video, we are deep diving into the entire history and the lore of the Hellfire Peninsula and its dark portal, following a timeline spanning 13,000 years, uncovering the calculated schemes of Kil'jaeden, the rise of Illidan's Stormrage, to the survival of the Sons of Lothar, and how the Horde and the Alliance began their war in Outland.
Wakey, wakey.
When we think of the Hellfire Peninsula, the first image that comes to mind is the Dark Portal. But to understand why that gateway was ever built, we have to look far beyond the shattered world of Outland. Thousands of years ago, the Dark Titan Sargeras began his burning crusade to wipe out all life in the universe. To do this, he needed an army, so he began building the Burning Legion, a vast and chaotic demonic force. But this army was a bit of a motley crew. They lacked discipline, so to help lead his legion, he sought out the most intelligent race he had found in the universe, the Eredar of Argus. The Eredar were exceptionally talented magic wielders, led by a powerful trio, Kil'jaeden, Archimonde, and Velen. The Eredar were offered a deal, eternal power in exchange for absolute loyalty to the Legion. While Archimonde and Kil'jaeden eagerly joined the Legion, Velen saw a vision of the truth, a vision of his people transformed into monstrous demons. Refusing this seemingly too good to be true gift, Velen and his closest followers fled their homeworld, and they did that with the help of the Divine Naru and their interdimensional spaceships. As they left, they renamed themselves to the Draenei. In their language, it meant the exiled ones. Kil'jaeden took this departure as a personal betrayal. For the next 13,000 years, he hunted them across the stars, destroying world after world as the Draenei narrowly escaped his grasp. That cycle finally ended 250 years ago, when the Draenei found a remote, lush planet they called Draenor. They built a new civilization in secret, establishing the great city of Shattrath and the holy temple of Karabor. It was on this planet that they lived in peace alongside the native shamanistic orcs. But Kil'jaeden would eventually find these exiles. But this time, he wouldn't use the Legion's brute force to destroy them. He was going to weaponize the planet itself. Rather than the standard Legion invasion which rampaged across planets, Kil'jaeden chose a more deceptive weapon. His primary instrument for corrupting the Orcs was an outcast named Gul'dan. Born physically weak and exiled by his own people for that very reason, Gul'dan sought power at the throne of elements in Nagrand. The ancient spirits of Draenor heard his call but immediately rejected him, sensing a deep-seated darkness in his soul. In this moment of despair, Kil'jaeden answered his call, gifting him the destructive power of fell magic. The Demon Lord had found exactly what he needed, a vulnerable pawn he could use to checkmate the Draenei. But Kil'jaeden quickly realized that an outcast like Gul'dan wouldn't have the influence to sway an entire race of Orcs. The demon sent Gul'dan to infiltrate the Shadowmoon clan and its revered chieftain, Ner'zhul. By posing as a humble apprentice, Gul'dan manipulated the influential shaman, slowly convincing the Orcish people that their Draenei neighbours were a threat to their survival. By the time Ner'zhul realised he was being played,
He sounds familiar, Ner'zhul does.
Gul'dan had formed the Shadow Council, a secret cult. He opened schools of demonology and necromancy, and the Age of the Warlock had begun. The Horde needed a central hub to run their operations. They moved into the heart of the Tanaan jungle. Now, it's important to remember that this version of the Tanaan jungle is actually the Hellfire Peninsula, but existing before the planet was destroyed, long before any of us stepped through the Dark Portal. A new war chief had been appointed to lead this increasingly aggressive group of Orcs, Blackhand the Destroyer. He commissioned his masons to build a grand capital in the Tanaan jungle. Once it was complete, they would call it the Citadel. Once they were ready, from the Citadel, the Orcs unleashed their full military might against the aliens. The Orcs tore across Draenor, eventually capturing the sacred temple of Karabor, the seat of power of the Draenei, and the place where Velen was leading his people. During the battle for Karabor, the demon lord Manaroth had been summoned to join the fight. After the Orc victory, Gul'dan was ordered to collect Manaroth's blood, and then he arranged a massive gathering back in the mountains of the Tanaan jungle. Standing before the other Orc clans, Gul'dan offered them the blood of the Pit Lord. Already corrupted, bloodthirsty, and desperate for more power, most of the chieftains agreed to the pact. They drank the demon's blood,
Ew.
fate to the burning legion.
That's not sanitary.
The impact this deal had on the land of Draenor was devastating. The warlock magics used by these corrupted Orcs began to wither the landscape, turning Draenor into a wasteland. Under orders from Kil'jaeden, the Horde then decimated the rest of the Draenei, putting a large majority of the survivors into prisons. With their homeworld now completely conquered, the Orcish Horde turned its gaze towards new worlds, a story that every Warcraft fan knows like the back of their hand. 10,000 years after his first failed invasion during the War of the Ancients, Sargeras saw the Orcish Horde as the perfect blunt instrument, a weapon he could use to finally shatter Azeroth's defences and pave the way for a second Legion invasion. Through the possessed human mage Medivh back on Azeroth, Sargeras reached out to Gul'dan. Medivh promised the Warlock godlike powers if he would lead the Horde to Azeroth and conquer their planet. Gul'dan, being the weakling he was, accepted this deal, and at the edge of the Tanaan jungle, not far from the Citadel, the Shadow Council began constructing a massive gateway, the Stair of Destiny.
Yo, that's cool looking.
Beyond, these two sorcerers connected, and then the Dark Portal flared to life, linking the planets of Azeroth and Draenor forever. Within just 3 years of the portal opening, the Horde had surged through the rift and laid siege to the
portal
human
to another
kingdoms
planet?
of the south. With Stormwind in ruins, the surviving humans were forced to flee, setting sail for Lordaeron to warn the rest of the world about the unstoppable force heading their way. Fearing total annihilation, the human kingdoms of the north formed the Alliance of Lordaeron. Bolstered by the Knights of the Silver Hand, the Alliance managed to push the Horde back across the continent, eventually cornering them at the foot of the Dark Portal. In a desperate bid to end the threat, the Archmage Khadgar used his magic to shatter the stone structure. But he soon discovered a terrifying truth. While the physical gateway could be destroyed, the bleeding rift between the worlds still remained. To
Uh-oh.
watch over this flickering scar between worlds, the Alliance built the fortress of Netherguard Keep, hoping that the nightmare was finally buried. At this point
It
in
wasn't.
time, most of the remaining orcs were rounded up and placed into internment camps.
Ah.
Some fled into the wilds of Azeroth, and the lucky ones managed to escape back through the portal before its destruction, effectively ending the Second War. As for the architect of the invasion, Gul'dan never saw the end of the war. Driven by greed, he had abandoned the Horde to seek out his promised prize. But his ambition caught up with him. He was torn apart by demons protecting the power, and killed before he could claim the prize he had sacrificed his entire race to find. With Gul'dan dead, and the orcs scattered into internment camps, Azeroth returned to its usual way of life. But on the other side of the rift, a new plan was already in motion. Driven by the need to find a new home for his dying people, the elder shaman Ner'zhul and his Death Knight disciple, Teron Gorefiend, hatched a new, ambitious, but desperate plan. They would open portals to countless new worlds for the Horde to conquer. But to stabilize these gateways, he needed powerful artifacts that were hidden across Azeroth. The Book of Medivh, the Eye of Dalaran, and then the Jeweled Scepter of Sargeras. 2 years after the end of the Second War, Teron Gorefiend led a surgical strike team back through the rift into Azeroth to steal these relics.
Just be
As these
sneaky.
artifacts vanished, panic started to set in. King Terenas and the leaders of Lordaeron realized they couldn't just sit back and wait for a third war with the orcs. If they wanted to save their world, they would have to take the fight to the source. A preemptive strike into the heart of the orcish homeworld to put an end to the orcs and retrieve the stolen artifacts. Led by General Terrellian and the Archmage Khadgar, this roster was pretty much a who's who of Alliance war heroes. The Master Scout, Ilaria Windrunner, the Griffin Rider, Kurdran Wildhammer, and the seasoned commander, Danath Trollbane. Together they called themselves the Sons of Lothar. They stepped through the dark portal, crossed the universe, and emerged into a world that was already dying.
Sorry.
To break the fourth wall for a second here, there is some ambiguity about what the peninsula looked like at this exact moment in time. The planet hadn't been completely shattered, well, not yet anyway, but the Tanaan jungle was a shadow of its former self. Years of necromancy and fell magic had poisoned the soil, rotting the jungle into the red wasteland we recognize today. The biggest difference between what the Sons of Lothar would have seen and what we see today is most likely just the sky, but we'll get to that in a moment. The expedition didn't have much time to sightsee, not that there's much to see anyway, but they were immediately surrounded by the remnants of the Horde. They fought to establish a small settlement in the south called the Expedition Armory, and from there they launched their first major coordinated strike against the Orcish shipyard of Zeth Kur. Following that small victory, they pushed into the heart of the peninsula to establish a permanent base of operations on a hold. But this plan was a logistical nightmare. For months, they laboured to lay the foundations and build the walls, all while under constant pressure from Kargath Bladefist and his brutal Shattered Hand clan. Despite these orcish raids, On a Hold grew into a formidable bastion, serving as the perfect staging ground for a full-scale raid on the nearby Hellfire Citadel, where intelligence suggested Ner'zhul was hiding. The Alliance then launched a massive invasion, battling floor by floor through a wall of Shattered Hand orcs, only to then realise they had just walked straight into a trap. Ner'zhul was already gone. He had already fled back towards the Black Temple, the former temple of Karabor from earlier on. He had gone there for his big finale, the spell of conjuration. As he channeled the stolen artifacts, the shaman abandoned all concern for the rest of the Horde, opening dozens of rifts to
seems to be a
other worlds
pattern,
and leaving the orcish race behind. The sheer magnitude of the energy of this spell was too much for the planet to handle, and it began to rip apart. As the ground fell away, Terrellian and Khadgar realised they couldn't make it back to the Dark Portal in time. More importantly, they knew if they didn't act there and then, the apocalyptic explosion tearing Draenor apart might travel through the rift and potentially consume Azeroth too. So they made the ultimate sacrifice. They stayed behind to destroy the gateway from the Draenor side. trapping themselves in a world-ending event to save the people back home.
Oh,
The sons of
no.
Lothar had vanished into silence. When the smoke finally cleared, Draenor had been obliterated. What remained were the floating, shattered islands of Outland. Caught on the
Jeez.
edge of a dimensional
One
plane
spell
was
gone
the home
wrong.
to the Burning Legion, the Twisting Nether. While life on Draenor seemingly ceased to exist, the architect of the planet's downfall was facing a far worse fate. After fleeing through the rifts, Ner'zhul was intercepted by Kil'jaeden. The Demon Lord wasn't interested in showing mercy to an orc. With Gul'dan dead, he needed a new servant. So he tore the shaman's spirit apart and bound his soul to a cursed set of plate armor and a rune blade called Frostmourne. This entity was then encased in a block of ice and thrown onto the surface.
That's
of
why he sounds
Azeroth.
familiar.
The Lich
Okay.
King had just been created. Kil'jaeden's plan for the Lich King was very similar to what he planned for the Horde. Weaken Azeroth's defenses for a
Sure.
new Legion invasion. Through his new telepathic powers, the Lich King corrupted the Archmage Kel'Thuzad. Together, they unleashed the Plague of Undeath across the human kingdoms, a magical disease that killed the living and then raised them into mindless soldiers of the
No,
Scourge.
it's a
As the
zombies. Oh,
Scourge
Scourge,
rotted
sorry.
north of the eastern kingdoms, a young orc named Thrall escaped his life as a gladiator slave in an Alliance internment camp, and he began rallying the survivors of his people. He set out to build a new horde. Guided by visions from a mysterious prophet, Thrall realized his people would never find peace in the eastern kingdoms. So he gathered his new coalition and set sail for the distant continent of Kalimdor, seeking a destiny far from the shadow of the Dark Portal and the sins of the Old Horde. Soon
Sure.
as they arrived on Kalimdor, the Third War erupted as the Burning Legion launched its second full-scale invasion of Azeroth, all led by the Demon Lord, Archimonde. As the Legion tore through Kalimdor, the Night Elves were forced to wake their ancient druids in an attempt to defend the planet. In the process, they stumbled upon a prisoner who had been locked away for 10,000 years, Illidan Stormrage. Illidan was a master of sorcery who had played a dangerous double game during the Legion's first invasion. His methods
Yeah, I
were
remember
too dark for his people to forgive. His own brother Malfurion ordered his imprisonment in the Barrow Deeps, where Illidan would sit in darkness for 10,000 years. But his destiny would soon change when the leader of the Kaldorei, Tyrande Whisperwind, sought out his help. Desperate for any edge against the Burning Legion, Tyrande set Illidan free, hoping that he would once again hunt down his ancient enemies. Illidan tracked a source of demonic corruption to the forests of Felwood. It was there that he was manipulated by the Death Knight Arthas Menethil, who revealed the existence and the untold powers of the Skull of Gul'dan. Illidan took the bait, slaughtering the artifact's guardians and then consuming its essence. This power transformed him. No longer just a night elf, Illidan was now the first demon hunter, using his new strength to slay the Legion's most powerful dreadlord, Tichondrius. But this small victory came at a price. Horrified by his demonic transformation, Malfurion banished his brother from the Night Elf lands. This butterfly effect
But he
was about to
helped.
change the Hellfire Peninsula forever. While the rest of the world gathered at Mount Hyjal for a final stand, Illidan set out to find his place in the
Dang,
changing
bro.
world. But soon enough, he
Give
was
the title the
approached by
failure.
Demon Lord Kil'jaeden. Kil'jaeden made Illidan an offer that he couldn't refuse, literally. Archimonde's defeat at Mount Hyjal had left the Legion in disarray, and Kil'jaeden's own creation, the Lich King, was growing far too powerful. Kil'jaeden ordered Illidan to destroy the Frozen Throne. Illidan raced to the ruins of Dalaran, where he attempted to use the Eye of Sargeras to cast a global spell that would melt the polar ice and crush the Frozen Throne. But at that final moment, Malfurion and Maiev intervened. They believed his reckless magic was tearing the planet apart and forced him to shut it down. Having failed his mission and terrified of Kil'jaeden's wrath, Illidan realized Azeroth was no longer safe. Using a lingering magical rift, he fled into the Great Dark Beyond, seeking sanctuary in the one place he thought the Legion would never look: the shattered, forgotten remains of Outland. Because Ner'zhul's portals had never truly closed, the Burning Legion had turned the floating fragments of Outland into a staging ground. The Pit Lord Magtheridon had seized control of Outland. gathering the
I mean,
remaining
it probably
orcs
wasn't
under
very
his
hard.
banner and summoning countless demons from the twisting nether to solidify his rule. When Illidan arrived in Outland, he didn't find the sanctuary he expected. Illidan realized that there was only one way to stay safe from Kil'jaeden, and that was to wipe out the Legion and take Outland for himself. He then launched a systematic campaign to shut down the Legion's portals and eventually stormed their capital, the Black Temple. They managed to defeat Magtheridon, the Lord of Outland, but instead of killing the Pit Lord, Illidan dragged him back to the Hellfire Peninsula. It was there that he imprisoned Magtheridon beneath the Hellfire Citadel, turning the demon into a living tap of fell blood. Many of the remaining orcs of Outland, including
crazy.
Targath
It's pretty
Bladefist,
smart.
could see the promised future under Illidan, and they swore their loyalty to him. They then began drinking Magtheridon's blood to become the stronger, more aggressive fell orcs. After defeating Magtheridon, Illidan had successfully conquered the Wasteland and crowning himself the Lord of Outland. But his total control over Outland wouldn't go unchallenged for long. After he found him, Kil'jaeden dispatched a massive demonic army to Outland to crush his rival. At the same time, he was also coordinating with the high-ranking Doom Lord, Lord Kazakh. Kazakh was stationed on the Azeroth side of the Rift. After the Legion's disastrous defeat at Mount Hyjal, Kazakh had retreated to the Blasted Lands, waiting for his chance to strike back. With Kazakh securing the Azeroth side of the Dark Portal, Kil'jaeden gave the command. Using a mysterious and ancient relic that I don't think we know the name of, Kazakh successfully reactivated the Dark Portal, marking the beginning of a new era of war. Word of the portal's reactivation quickly reached the two superpowers of the world, the Alliance and the Horde. By this time, both factions had evolved into massive, seasoned military machines. Now, ready for vengeance against the Burning Legion, the Alliance and the Horde stood at the foot of the Dark Portal, preparing to cross the dimensional barrier and take the fight directly to the Legion in the shattered remains of Outland. When the Alliance and Horde forces finally surged through the portal and onto the Stair of Destiny, they were instantly met with a wall of demons.
For the Alliance.
Both factions had to fight their way down the steps just to gain enough ground to move into the wider region. The Horde pushed towards the northern side of the Path of Glory. This was a grotesque, bone-white road that cut through the centre of the peninsula, stretching from the Dark Portal all the way to the Hellfire Citadel. It wasn't made of stone, though. It was made of the bones of countless Draenei who had been slaughtered decades earlier.
That's
during
kind
the
of
Horde's
metal.
initial demonic
Messed up,
rampage.
but it's
In the northern
kinda metal.
side, the Horde established their new stronghold called Thrallmar. This fortress became their
Thrallmar?
primary base of operations and was designed to secure the local resources and provide a tactical vantage point over the demon-infested peninsula. While scouting the north of the Hellfire Peninsula, the Horde made an incredible discovery. Tucked away in the mountains, they found a group of Mag'har orcs. These orcs had been quarantined years before the original blood pact between the orcs and the Burning Legion. They had been isolated to prevent the spread of a disease called the Red Pox. This isolation turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Because they were cast out, they had never drunk the demon blood or fallen under the Legion's control, and the Mag'har soon became vital allies to the new Horde. At the same time, the Blood Elves, despite being part of the Horde, established their own outpost on the western edge of the peninsula. Known as Falcon Watch, it served as a specialised base for their rangers. As the Horde slowly began to clear the north of demonic influence and solidify their territory, a very different story was unfolding for the Alliance on the southern side of the Path of Glory. As the Alliance forces began to fan out across the southern peninsula, they spotted a massive fortress perched on a high ridge in the distance. After 18 long years of pain and silence, the Alliance had finally found them. The Sons of Lothar were alive. The legendary expedition hadn't just survived the explosion of Draenor. They had spent 2 decades holding the line in the most hostile environment imaginable. When the main Alliance forces marched into On a Hold, they were greeted by Danath Trollbane. The seasoned veteran had stepped up as the commander of the Sons of Lothar, following the mysterious disappearance of Terrellian and Delaria Windrunner during the world's destruction. The arrival of reinforcements from Azeroth, even though it took 18 years, breathed a new life into the aging Sons of Lothar. Within days, Honor Hold was transformed into a bustling war machine. Much like the Horde's discovery of the Mag'har Orcs, the Alliance also found their own lost connections. Draenei scouts pushed into the northern mountain ranges and reunited with a religious sect of their people who had managed to endure the Orcish wars. This sanctuary, the Temple of Telhamat, became a vital hub for the reunited Draenei and a welcoming outpost for any Alliance travelers navigating the Hellfire
Where am I?
Peninsula. But before the Horde and the Alliance could march to the edges of the shattered world, it was time for them to face their first true test in Outland, a direct assault on the heart of the Fel Orc regime. To begin the preparations, the Horde from Thrallmar and the Alliance from Honor Hold focused their attention on the Bone Chewer clan, the Fel Orcs who controlled the Path of Glory, eventually uncovering a dark truth, the possible presence of a powerful demonic essence hidden beneath the surface. Needing more information, both factions sent their champions to breach the Hellfire ramparts. They raided the fortifications for supplies and eliminated key leaders like Dragon Rider Vazrudan the Herald. On Vazrudan's body, the heroes found a revealing letter, solid proof that the entire Fel Horde was acting under the direct command of Illidan Stormrage. Following this lead, adventurers were sent into the Blood Furnace to gather samples of the Fel Orc blood. The goal was to understand the exact process Illidan was using to mass-produce these monsters.
Sure.
After a brutal slog through the facility and the defeat of Celedan the Breaker, the scouting parties returned with grim news. They confirmed that Illidan was using the blood of a high-ranking demon that was imprisoned below the citadel to forcibly convert orcs into his personal army.
Ooh.
After that, a final desperate assault was launched to seize the seat of the Fel Orcs' power. Their champions battled their way through the fortress and finally executed Kargath Bladefist. With the leadership of the Fel Orcs shattered, the focus then shifted to its source of power. To prepare for a battle against an imprisoned Pit Lord, they would first have to secure the rest of the peninsula. The final confrontation with the Pit Lord Magtheridon would have to wait. To truly secure the peninsula, they had to ensure the Legion's grip was broken for good, and their first stop was the pools of Agonar to the north. These hot springs were once considered sacred by the Draenei, but they had since been defiled by the acidic blood of a dying Pit Lord named Agonar. During the investigation, both Nazgrel of Thrallmar and Danath Trollbane of Honor Hold identified a major threat looming over the area, Erasius the Cruel. Heroes from both factions were sent into the corrupted pools to strike him down. With Erasius gone, the focus then shifted to his leader. The Doom Lord had established his seat of power in the northeastern mountains, at a location called the Throne of Kil'jaeden. It was the very spot where the original blood pact between the Orcs and the Burning Legion had been sealed decades earlier. The champions of Azeroth then confronted Kazakh at the summit and ended his reign of terror.
Ditch. Now
With
take
the
us.
Alliance and the Horde
Steals
now
money.
firmly established across the region, the tide had finally turned. The meat grinder that was the Hellfire Peninsula was almost secure. But this left one final mission, descending into Magtheridon's lair to finish what we had started. Adventurers who were finally strong enough to enter into the citadel gathered in larger coordinated groups to descend into Magtheridon's lair. They knew that by killing the Pit Lord, they would be permanently cutting off the supply of demon blood, effectively ending Illidan's ability to create more Fel Orcs.
Yeah.
Following a massive chaotic battle, the heroes of Azeroth managed to slay the Pit Lord. This was a huge blow to Illidan's plans, essentially dismantling his most powerful military asset in the peninsula. The peninsula is also home to its own native predators, most notably the Ravagers. These insectoid beasts dominate the western reaches of the zone. South of the Ravagers, we find the Den of Halesh. This deep chasm is home to a small tribe of Arakoa, an ancient avian race from the old world of Draenor. We're going to cover the Arakoa in more detail in our video about the Terakar forest, so we won't stay too long here. But as we turn and run away from the Arakoa, we then bump into the Stone Scythe Alphas. These rock flayers have a special affinity for attacking the broken of the nearby ruins of Shana. These poor, corrupted Draenei really don't have it easy in the Hellfire Peninsula. They are enslaved by the Illidari, who are forcing them to excavate the site in hopes of finding a remnant of an ancient Eredar relic capable of untold power. To the north of the Ravager dens lies Fallen Sky Ridge, a place where massive stone colossals stand guard over a mysterious red crystal embedded in the mountainside, the evidence suggesting that this is the handiwork of Kael'thas Sunstrider. But perhaps the most dangerous addition to the Hellfire Peninsula was the Mo'arg, highly intelligent demons who specialize in science and demonic engineering. On the northeastern edge of the peninsula, in the shadows of the throne of Kil'jaeden, these Mo'arg demons established a series of forge camps. These camps were manufacturing plants for the Legion's most terrifying invention, the Fel Reaver. Details of the inner workings of these mechanical monstrosities are pretty scarce, but their presence is impossible to ignore. Once you step through the dark portal, you're free to take the fight to them yourself, assuming you've got the stomach for it. The Hellfire Peninsula can be described as the graveyard of Draenor, the place where the Orcish Horde was born in blood, and where the Alliance's greatest heroes made a sacrifice that echoed for 20 long years. But as we've seen, the peninsula was only the beginning. The stories that were set in motion here, the hunt for Illidan Stormrage, or the mystery of Kael'thas Sunstrider's corruption, all these stories will follow us as we head into the shattered remains of Outland. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lore behind the first zone in Outland, you can check out a similar video for the Wrath of the Lich King. Here is a safe portal to that video.
Alright, well, I'll probably save that one for later, but that was really interesting. I knew some of those characters. Like I said, like, I know of Warcraft, obviously. It's hard to not know about Warcraft, but, like, I knew some of those characters just because, like, people I watch talked about them before, like Lich King, Narzul, I think is his name. Like, I've seen that before. The one where he's, like, getting, where is it? The one where he's at the portal or he's doing a spell and it backfires. I've seen that. I've seen that multiple times. I guess for the Lich King? I can't find it. But you probably know what I'm talking about. Now, I remember that scene. I'm really confused, though, because I guess did Gul'dan get revived? Because wasn't he in Legion? Or maybe I'm mistaken. But Gul'dan, even though he was a coward, he is kind of a cool character in a way. Like, again, not cool because he's brave, but, like, he's just downright nasty. Like, I mean, nasty isn't like, a coward and, like, always plotting something. Like, I've seen a little bit of his backstory. Kind of felt bad a little bit, but that bits and like I said, I watched some of the Karazhan Library and Platinum WoW, so I've heard of these things before, but they never really clicked. I didn't realize the portal was to another planet, so I thought the portal was like like to hell or something. I didn't realize it's to another planet. That's kind of cool. The portal itself looks kind of neat. Honestly, like the craftsmanship in that thing is phenomenal. I'm not gonna be able to scroll back to it, I guess. Right there. I mean, it looks really cool. I mean, it looks really intimidating. What was it? I'm curious too. They mentioned the orcs that were quarantined. Is that from the infamous incident where there was a breakout of a virus? Is that the one? I heard about that where like a bunch of players and their characters got sick and like people were lining up to get healed and everything. It's like it was a really interesting phenomena that happened. What else? Ultimate failures, like, bro, that's so a little harsh, but maybe deserved. I don't know. Oh, yeah, the Lich King. Lich King. He's kind of cool. Yeah, this one. I seen.
And its downfall
I
was
had
facing a far
seen this before. I'm guessing it was part of. I can't remember. It was part of the Burning Crusade trailer, or if it was part of the Wrath of the Lich King trailer. I think it was Burning Crusade trailer. It was part of. I've seen, like I said, I've seen the Burning Crusade trailer and all that stuff a couple times, but nothing ever clicked. What I would like to do is do a little bit more lore and then watch all of the trailers from World of Warcraft, and everything like that. That'd be kind of interesting. There's also like cinematics within each expansion, right? Or is that just kind of later on? Either way, I'm asking a lot of questions. I'll get the answer to it at some point. But go ahead and check out Karazhan Library. Like I said, I don't know. I didn't know anything about WoW, to be honest with you. I've learned a lot from them and Platinum WoW. They make really good content, and they make it easy to digest. Thank everyone for tuning in. If you have any suggestions on what you would like me to react to, whether it's World of Warcraft related or if it's just something else in general, feel free to put in a comment below. You can also join our Discord and you can add your suggestions there as well. Either way, thank you everyone for tuning in, and until next time, take care and have a good one.